Hello, 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 and welcome to the Stride Report podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zatlin. How's it going, man?
That's right. Some of you may have heard just in that lone introduction alone. It is now the Stride Report podcast for some legal hoopla that none of you really care about. And also, it probably just simplifies it. We're the Stride Report podcast. No more Blue Oval. I know, devastating for some of you who have become reflexive in trying to hear Blue Oval, but we're now the Stride Report podcast. Again, like I said, some legal hoopla that none of you really care about. Thankfully, it doesn't really impact us too much. So, but Ben, outside of that little small tidbit of news, it's done. We're done. How does
Season's
it
over.
feel?
It feels great. It was nice to have I think we talked about last week. It was nice for me to be around the entire season. I didn't
True.
have to step out for paternity leave for a couple weeks, so that was nice. And it was action packed. I mean, both on the men and women's side, and we saw this reflected in the amount of records that were run during the season and then during the NCAA championships, as well as just the amount of really intense battles that we had for the national titles because there were so many events that were so wide open. You saw that in our predictions, you saw that in the results. It was anyone's game in a lot of these events, and the ones that weren't anyone's games, we saw like all-time performances, which I think made this entire championships and this entire season one of my favorite that I've covered so far.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So shout out, by the way, to Andrew LeMay, our photographer, Will Ogia, our videographer, and of course Lauren Colley, our social media girl, Anna Peter as well, who was doing social media posting remotely. But that first group of three, they were out there. They killed it with all the coverage. We're gonna have photos on the site. Hopefully by the time this is out, or at least some of them at least. So be patient and be waiting for that. But Ben, how do we want to approach today's pod in terms of analysis?
Well, before we get to that, we have to say we have new Apple ratings and
We
reviews
do.
and
Oh,
new
I haven't
Spotify
checked.
ratings. We are up to on Spotify, we're up to 204, and we got one new rating and review on Apple, so we're up to 113 there. The review subject line favorite pod. The reviewer says, I run in Division One and I'm always trying to keep up with the big names in the NCAA. These guys do their homework. They know everything about everyone. Very helpful and enjoyable for everyone who wants to learn more about the sport. So thank you very much for that review. One of
That
my
was great.
favorite reviews as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Everyone's been kind of on fire lately with the
Yeah.
reviews. It's been great. Like all we had to do was just beg, and that's basically what
It's
happened.
paid
So
off.
it's awesome. So thank you, sincerely. Thank you to everyone who's doing that. And if you can keep doing that, that'd be awesome. The summer and off season is often when some of our best conversations happen as well.
Mhm.
So stay on the lookout for that. But now, Ben, where did you want to start with today's conversation?
Let's start with the women's steeplechase. And we have to, because not only did we see an NCAA record, we saw one of the fastest steeplechase times ever. And that, of course, was run by Doris Lemngole, who ran 8:58 to take home the national championship. Front ran it the entire time. Lexi Holiday Lowry gave chase admirably for a long time. I think longer than many of us would have expected if we knew Lemon was going to go out in this pace. And she ends up breaking the old NCAA record, running 9:08. Angelina Napoleon runs 9:16. I mean, some crazy good performances behind Lemon but Lemon is the story. 8:58. I like how you put it in the First Thoughts article about we would just assume that she's going pro now because she's done everything you can expect. But in this new era of the NCAA, where there's not only NIL, but there's been the NCAA settlement where colleges can directly pay athletes. Now we live in a whole new situation where it might be more profitable for her to stay. And we could end up seeing one of I'm not one of the greatest careers in NCAA history. And this is one of those markers that one of the results that is going to be, I mean, unless she continues to do things crazy
It's
on
true.
on the first page of her resume and very near the top.
I mean, I'm at a complete loss for words. I saw 8:58, and
Yeah.
I was like, I watched it, and I'm watching her with like a couple laps to go, and I'm like, this is going to be not just fast. This is going to be like insanely fast. And then she hits the last lap. I'm like, oh my god, she she could run under 9. I had a text from a buddy of mine who was a steeplechaser in the ACC, and I think he was a back end scorer at the ACC championships back in our heyday in the steeplechase. I think his PR at the time was like 901, which was respectable at
Mhm.
that time. Obviously the NCAA has gotten faster, but he texted me and he goes, "My PR, which scored in the men's ACC championships back in the day, would not have been enough to win this national title," which is insane. It's absurd. So I have a question for you. 8:58.15. Athing Mo ran 157.75.
Mhm.
We've seen Parker Volby run what 30:50, I want to say, for the 10K. Is this the single greatest collegiate performance we've ever seen?
Absolutely.
Distance wise.
Without question.
I agree.
I think when you are 11th, what is it, all time in the
She's
steeplechase?
11th all time. She's the 14th woman to break the 9-minute barrier ever.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the best who have ever done it in this event outside of the NCAA stage. We're talking about Olympians, world champions, and she has put herself right into that conversation. Like, it's not unrealistic that she could be winning a Olympic medal by the next time the Olympics roll around in 2028. It just she's doing something at a level the NCAA has never seen in any distance event, where you can go straight from the NCAA's to she could go run Diamond Leagues this summer and be favored to win in some of them.
That's
That
crazy,
just doesn't happen.
man. And I'm at a complete loss for words. And I do want to also give credit to Coach Nick Steniff, who came over from, I want to say, Toledo, came over from Toledo
Mhm.
and was given like a lot of these Alabama women. That it could have been very easy to mess this up. I think some people forget about that. It
Yep.
could have been very easy to mess up the development of all these like naturally talented stars, and yet I don't think anyone has been able to nurture true superstars better than Nick Steniff has, and it's shown in the results. I mean, what he has done has been just phenomenal, and I'm unbelievably impressed. Jumping off of Lemngole, though, Lexi Halliday Lowry, is she the greatest NCAA distance athlete to never win a national title?
Yeah, you put that in the first thoughts article, and that got me thinking. I was like, I don't. It's a hard list to compile in your head, right?
Right.
Because when your brain automatically goes to the best athletes, and they often have won national championships. Without really having done a deep dive on it, it feels like she is, because she went under an NCAA record, like, and was only beaten, and the only reason she doesn't have a national title is because someone smashed that NCAA record, right? I mean, how many women, or men or women, honestly, have run under records or old records and not won a title at least once during their career? It's probably very few. And you think about her range and her versatility across all 3 seasons too. And I think that's another feather in her cap. She was super reliable and scoring points for BYU every single season for pretty much her entire career, which I think that consistency and durability throughout that also has to be a point in her favor.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I never want to like overreact to what is being like what the moment is, which is why I'm like still like pretty hesitant about being like what is is Lemon the fastest ever. I still at the best ever. I do think that was probably the best performance ever though.
Yeah.
Is Halliday Lowry, is that you know the best who has ever not won a national title? Um, and I'm struggling to think, but she's run 14:52. She's had numerous, multiple at least, runner-up finishes on the national stage. She broke an NCAA record only to be beaten by a woman who put together who put together maybe the best distance performance ever. I think she might be. I think she might be, which is like a glass half full, glass half empty kind of thing, but um, is what it is. Moving on to third place, NC State, Angelina Napoleon, 9:16. We knew she was going to be good. I don't think we knew that she was going to be this good. 9:16, NCAA number 5 all time. Who were you more surprised about? Holiday Lowry going under the old record or Angelina Napoleon running 9:16?
I think Napoleon 9:16. This was very. I, I'm almost hesitant to say this because I don't want to curse her, but it was very Victor Kipkurui esque of like you lost to two all-time great performers. You got dragged along to a very impressive third place performance in a time that was way faster than anyone could have expected. And then obviously Kipyego's career has not elevated since that point. But for Napoleon, not only has the ceiling been way higher than we expected, the consistency has been there. I remember when she was running those times earlier in the year, they were really impressive. We're like, all right, hey, she's someone certainly to watch in the All-American picture. But we were both kind of hesitant about her because not a ton of experience. We hadn't seen her be at this level very consistently. And she shut us up pretty quickly by just
Yep.
going on a tear of running great steeple after great steeple after great steeple and culminating with, again, a performance that tremendously raises her ceiling in my eyes and is someone now that I'm looking forward to seeing in the fall and being like, how high can she finish? It's not always the easiest to translate steeple to whatever you're going to run in the cross country championships. But gosh, I mean, there's very few people that have ever been able to run under 9:20, and almost all of them have been stars in cross country. So I think there's going to be a ton of expectations for her over the next year or so, and rightly so.
Before we move off of that, quick question. One, Angelina Napoleon, right off the top of your head, where are you ranking her in our top 50, if at all?
I know she's definitely in it in my mind. I think I
For
think
cross
she's all
country?
American, probably like 35 ish range.
I don't know if I'm quite there. Probably closer to 45.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I think again we'll have to dig into it more. But third place to those two, right? Those two are top 5, top 10 cross
9:16 is
country
cooking.
runners.
9:16 is
Like,
like
yeah,
Courtney Frerich's, Courtney Wayman type.
Wayman, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's pretty impressive. All right, fourth, West Virginia Sarah Tate, fifth, Deborah Toronto, Texas A&M, sixth, Caitlin Stewart, run out of Michigan State, seven, Shelby Jensen of Utah State, and eighth, Leah Geruto of Oklahoma. Any quick takeaways there? Pretty predictable.
Yeah, this was pretty much as expected. Honestly, I don't think there was the whole steeplechase was very chalk.
I agree. I agree. So, okay, what's next on the agenda?
Let's go on to the men's 1500, where we saw Nathan Green with a fantastic final kick take home his second 1500-meter NCAA title, another 1500-meter title, 1500-meter and mile title for the Washington Huskies as they continue to dominate this event. Ethan Strand finishing in second, left his kick a little late and wasn't just really ran out of room in that last straightaway to be able to catch Green. And a surprising third place performance for Ferric Kovac from Harvard, who was right behind both of these guys as well. The final, though, was full of names that you didn't really expect, considering we lost Liam Murphy, we lost Abel Tefra in prelims, and it was still a very loaded field in this final, but not, it could have been even more loaded if we had some of the top guys qualify through.
Yeah, the losses, even Colin Solomon doesn't
Yeah.
advance to the finals. Like that was a bit of a surprising one. Yeah, like it's and I just I don't understand what it was about Murphy who struggled at the outdoor national
Yeah.
meet. Great at the indoor national meet. He was fourth in the 3K, I think twice. Um, but for whatever reason, tactics and the outdoor national meet struggled for him, and Teffer just didn't have a good day. Teffer didn't have a good day. But in terms of the actual race itself, I think people are going to be talking about Strand as like, well, he should have done this tactically and he didn't do this tactically. And like, sure, it's easy to say that like he should have put himself in a better position to win and to utilize his kick, and I agree with that. But then you're also asking him to completely redo this race and to find a better opening within the first two laps, right? Like to me, it's like I understand that like he didn't want to be overly eager and he wanted to suppress urgency until the final 200 meters, which is the best way to do it, frankly.
Mhm.
In usually.
Yep.
Um, but like his kick was well timed. His kick was easily, I think, compared to when he started it, the best in the field. Um, but he didn't put himself in a good position, and but it's also easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't hate the way that he ran most of this race. I just thought he should have gone like 100 meters earlier. Like if he put himself a little bit closer to green at 1200 meters, I think we're maybe having a different conversation. But no, I thought it was smart to kind of hang back a little bit and just let everybody start, not be the first one to start the kicking, and then clean up once everybody started to. It just, I think it was like 50, maybe 100 meters too late. And you saw how much he had to work around that bend going into that last turn to be able to get himself up to the level of the leaders. And if he's doing that on the back straightaway, that's a lot less difficult and probably gives him a little bit more room and energy to finalize that kick.
I don't know. I think you're all like the reason why his kick was so potent is because he was only from 200 out, right? Like that's I think there's an element to that is why it looked so ferocious coming around that bend and off that final curve. So, listen, again, I think there's a lot of different ticky tack things that could add up
Yeah.
and you'd be like, hey, and this is probably why he didn't win the national title. But Green sticking on Spencer's shoulder and making the move right when he does,
Hmm.
coming off the bend and surging off of it. He was just well timed, had a
Yep.
better kick, and I don't know how else to put it other than he was just better that day. What was more important in this race, positioning or kick?
Oh, positioning, 100%. And this is, it's not surprising to see Nathan Green win this type of race because in the amount of reps that he's had in these
It's
situations.
true.
You look at everyone besides maybe Spencer, and and maybe even more than Spencer, he's been in so many big time 1500-meter mile races at NCAAs or otherwise, and he just knows where to put himself, when to time the kick according to where his positioning is. And I think you see him win as a byproduct of that. This wasn't, now I think he probably was the best 1500-meter runner this season, but anybody could have won this race. I think in the top five. Really, maybe, I mean, Kovac kind of comes out of nowhere a little bit, and it would have been a surprise to see him win. But Strand, Spencer, Martin, I mean, all of these guys had good seasons, have great kicks. It wouldn't have been surprising to see them win. It just came down to, yeah, where you were when you started your kick, and ultimately Green was the one that executed it the most. And I think that's why, from experience, and why he's probably the most complete 1500-meter runner in the country, not only because of his kick, his overall just talent, but his understanding of positioning. I think, and that bore through in a major way this weekend.
He's definitely the best tactical 1500-meter
Yes.
runner. From that sense, I think by completeness, I think of like a well-roundedness or range type kind of skill
Hmm.
set. So, but regardless, like great running from both of them. Like I know they're both listed as juniors. I don't think Strand stays. I don't think Green stays. Well,
Does
Green's
Green
not.
have
Oh, Green, no,
eligibility left?
yeah, I'm looking. I'm looking. Green does not have eligibility left. I actually
Okay.
do know that because he said that in an interview. Um, but I'm looking at this because the flash results say that they're
Yeah, they're
juniors.
both.
Yeah,
Strand, I could
otherwise,
see coming back. I could see Strand coming back. I,
I
I'd
don't
be
know.
surprised, but I could. I don't, and I don't think Green can. But
Yeah, a green is out. I know that for I don't know why that's wrong. So I don't know if Strand's also out or whatever it may be. But regardless, Kovacs, we were kind of already briefly mentioned him. He's a guy who was running really well in the postseason, had some really good sneaky good 800-meter times, like won the Ivy League title over 800 meters, and he's just been tactically really refined and really speedy. even so, you're asking this guy who's always like run above his pay grade in the last couple seasons for him to get third is pretty special. And I'm trying to think of all of the national meet finishers this past weekend if his result is arguably the most surprising.
I think it probably is, just considering the field that he's running it against,
Yeah,
right? I
that's
mean,
true.
you're talking about arguably the most loaded field in these championships. And for him to make the final, I think we would have said, hey, great championship. Good
Yep.
job.
Yep.
For him to finish third is on a completely different level. And yeah, so I think he probably is the biggest surprise, or the person who exceeded expectations the most this weekend.
Quick wrap up on the rest of the All Americans here. Wisconsin's Adam Spencer in fourth, Virginia's Gary Martin in fifth, Bradley's Jack Kroll in sixth, Oregon's Simeon Beerbaum in seventh, and Cornell's Damian Hackett in eighth. Any quick takeaways?
Great weekend for Jack Kroll. Same
Yep.
same kind of thing that you can say about Kovacs. That, hey, he making the final and then being an All American. Incredible performance from him. The kicks that all these guys had. I mean, everyone except for Martin Segurola of Indiana ran under 52 on the last lap, which is just, when you're on an empty track all by yourself, like, that's impressive. To do that with the amount
In a
of
pack.
bodies that are around you is just insane. A lot of these guys running 405, 406 meters because they're taking the longer turns. Like, it was really impressive to see the kicks that all these guys, and Kroll, his kick rose to the top of this group, which I think is a testament to his overall talent.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, we're moving off of that. Are we going to the women's 1500?
Let's move on to the women's 1500, where, again, this was another very loaded field, and we really didn't know. I think we had, what, five different women predicted out of our six.
Personally, I had five. Some people could have said up to seven, you know.
Yeah, right. But out of our writers' predictions, we have five different people
There were six
predicted out of six,
writers. There were four different title
four
picks.
different names. And that just goes to show you how open this race was. And it was Sophie O'Sullivan of Washington capping her career in the best way possible, running 4:07 to take home the title, holding off Margot Appleton, who finished second, and Maggie Congdon, who finished third. The Oregon duo of Ayildes and Kazmierska were fourth and fifth. But again, just like the men's 1500, this field could have been even more packed. There were several women who did not make this final either, including, let me make sure I'm getting all these names here: Shannon Flockhart, Amina Matug, Sylvia Jalego. I mean, there was a lot of very very talented names that did not make this final. What was your, when O'Sullivan had the lead, and she had the lead for most of it going into that final lap? What did you think? Like, what was your expectation of what the finish was going to look like? Did you think someone was going to pass her? Did you think she was going to be a hold on? Did you think someone would be able to pass her and she'd be able to get them back? Like, I found it very, like, when I was watching the race, I was stunned that she was able to hold that lead for almost the entirety of the race.
I was as well. And it's I did expect someone to eventually, as I'm watching her go into that final lap, I'm watching this race going. Someone's gonna pass her and kick past her, right, on the
Right.
final curve or over the last 100 meters, like that, because that's just what happens, right?
Yep.
Like that. In that scenario, if you're leading at 400 to go, chances are you're not gonna finish it out with a national title.
Nope.
But what I think was so distinct about O'Sullivan's title is that she was in the lead and then from 200 out opened up such a massive kick
Amazing.
just at the same way she did at the Big Ten championships to gap herself for Mayildes. And it was successful again. And it's that second gear that I don't think that she's ever had in this kind of scenario. Like that was the defining factor of her season from the Big Ten championships to now, Her fitness was obviously the best that it's ever been during an NCAA season. Maybe not during the off season, but during an NCAA season it was. And her front running from 400 go reminded me of Luke Hauser winning the
Yeah.
2024 indoor mile national title. Um, I was just impressed, and I was a little surprised that the rest of the field just didn't really have an answer.
No, it was wild to see her open up the lead that she did, and you're absolutely right. Just another gear that she had, and she closed in 58.4. Like no one came like within a half a second of that.
Nope.
Margot Appleton put together a great last 200 to at least make you think it could get a little interesting, but knowing that she probably wasn't even going to make it, and she ran 58.9, like she almost ran 59 seconds. It was an incredible kick from like 400 to 200. Even if she just kept up that pace, she could have won. For her to shift gears and close the way that she did from 200 out was probably one of the more impressive things that we've seen since Maya Ramsden's kick, like that we've seen in the 1500, where she also was able to kind of move through the gears seemingly with ease. And O'Sullivan, it was very reminiscent of that type of performance.
Second place, Margot Appleton in Virginia. Northern Arizona's Maggie Congdon in third. Oregon's Solana Yildiz in fourth. Oregon's Claudia Kazmierska in fifth. Providence's Kimberly May in sixth. Virginia Tech's Lindsey Butler in seventh. And Washington's Chloe Forster in eighth. Who was the other national title pick that you had? I picked Kazmierska in my final predictions.
I had Appleton.
You had Appleton. Okay. I want to like say more about this field, but like that was just the race. Like if you
Yep.
were able to like kick, great. If not, you were kind of left behind, and that's the race. Like,
And it wasn't like this was a slow race either. I mean,
no,
it wasn't fast, but it was an honest effort up to the bell lap, and you still had to run sub 59 to win. Like that's crazy. We just don't see that very often in these women's fields. It's either, I mean, more often than not, it's honest, and so you can run a 60-second last lap and win, or it's slow and yeah, you end up running 4:15 and you close in sub 60. But yeah, the combination of just overall the way it was paced out, and then the closing speed, yeah, you just needed to be absolutely complete. And we saw the cream rise to the top, I think, because of that. Like there wasn't really any surprises when you look at this final. It's like, all right, O'Sullivan, Appleton, Congdon, Ayildiz, Kazmierska. Like, yeah, that's those. I think four of those women were picked in our predictions to win the title, and so it wasn't surprising to see them run well. And so, to your point, there isn't a lot to say. Like Chloe Forster finishing in eighth, I thought she had maybe a chance of winning. Butler and May are probably the only two surprises that finished sixth and seventh, and even then, we know they have the talent to be able to run
right.
with this group. So there really wasn't a whole lot of surprises outside of the women that didn't make this final.
Shout out Lindsey Butler, go Hokies. All right, what are we doing next? Where are we off to next?
Let's go to the men's steeplechase, where we saw James Corrigan with a fantastic kick in the last lap, take down Jeffrey Kurwa of Louisville. It was, I think the final time was 8:16.
Yep.
For Corrigan, a personal best for him, I believe.
Nope, he
And
ran 8:13 last summer.
8:30, or personal
Yeah,
best in the NCAA. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And yeah, this was everything that you could have hoped for if you were a Corrigan fan, right? I think we both picked him, right, as our steeplechase champions, and it was looking a little sketchy when Kurwa was making that move, and he opened up quite a big gap between himself and Corrigan. I mean, it was, looking at the splits here, there was a 2-second gap going into the last lap. And it felt like Corrigan was going to have to do something exceedingly special to take down Kurwa. And he did. He ran 61 seconds in that last lap. And the way that him and Coach Ed Eyestone played this season was perfect. And it ends with a national title for him.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually wasn't like that worried with a lap
I
to go.
was. I was. I really I was very surprised that there was that much of a gap, and it seemed like Corrigan had let go of the rope just a bit, and I think that's why I was nervous.
He definitely let it open, but like I'm watching Corrigan pretty much this whole time, more so than Kierwa, and
Yeah.
I'm like, he looks smooth. Like he looks like eager to make this kick and make this jump, and like he's running smooth. He's going over the barrier smooth. I was like, I'm not I wasn't like like 100% sure he was gonna win, but by 300 to go, I was like, oh yeah, I think he's gonna get him. Like this
Yeah,
is
at 300, you get it was amazing the difference just that 100 meters made, where you could
yeah.
see him like close almost like half that gap, and you're like, all right, he's got the momentum. It would be a surprise at this
But
point.
even at 450 to go, when I was like, I wasn't super worried. I think that's just I was like, this guy's an Olympian. He's just more experienced. I don't think he would he would just willy nilly let Kierwa just get away from him. And it just felt like it was a measured approach, and it was. And so I really wasn't all that worried about it. But I do think Kierwa was also smart to make his
Mhm.
move when he did.
Yep.
An aerobic based, strength based runner went from 1,000 out, tried to capitalize on a water jump, and opened up a gap. And it really worked for everyone except Corrigan. And Corrigan had to run a 61-second final lap to get it done. So I actually thought both men ran incredibly well. I thought Carson Williams affirming getting third in 8:19, an
Yep.
incredible run for him. Fantastic, incredibly poised. That's the result that you get when you're at your third national meet in the steeplechase. Um, I just thought across the board, like that top three ran incredibly well in their own races.
Yeah, and it's hard to pick much fault in the next three, right?
Yeah,
Joash Ruto, 820, Collins Kiprop, Kipnagai, 822, and Matthew Kosgei, 823. Like, you probably expected Kipnagai and Kosgei to be closer to third place and be closer to Kirwa, but I mean, running 822, 823 in your first NCAA championships in the steeplechase, it's hard to find much fault with that. You can go down this entire list of names and say they ran pretty well and should be
yep,
pretty happy. I think the only person who's probably upset with the race, how the race played out, was Christian Imroth, and that was because he took a nasty fall
yeah, nasty fall.
going over the steeple, the water barrier, and he ended up fading to last. But outside of that, I think everyone else ran pretty solid races from what we had seen from them throughout the season. And it, again, went very chalk. I think Carson Williams is really the biggest surprise. And to your point, the experience and the talent kind of finally intersected in a perfect way, to the point that, hey, if we knew that this was the kind of shape he was in coming into this race, it wouldn't have been shocking to see him finish third.
No, not at all. Yeah, it was. What was more chalk, the women's steeple or the steeple?
I think the women's slightly more
I
just
think you're
because
right.
of Carson Williams, but it
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about one person really.
yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Okay. I really have nothing further to say on
Yeah,
this.
and I wish we could, because it was a fantastic race.
Yeah.
Kirwa ran it really, really well, and Corrigan was just even better. But yeah, great job by all these men. Fantastic performance to watch. Let's move on to another fantastic finish, and that was the women's 800, where we saw Roisin Willis come back and win another NCAA title in the 800, this time over Michaela Page, who finished second. Both women running under 159 after Michaela Rose took the pace out hot. Megan Hunter finishing third, and Michaela Rose in fourth. Lauren Tolbert in fifth also ran sub two. She had a fantastic
Great
weekend,
national
certainly
meet.
elevated her stock, I think, almost as much as anyone in these national championships. The way that she ran prelims and then this national in the final, she ran terrific as well. But the story is Willis, after, I mean, a fantastic freshman year, it just never seemed like she was at that level again. And I think you did point her out in our preview episode last week of being like, hey, keep an eye on her. She's been running better. She has the experience, obviously. And I just don't think either of us thought she was capable of running 158 low
Probably not.
at this
No.
point. And so that's why we were pretty set on Rose or Hunter or Paige, because we just thought they were the only ones that had that in their locker this weekend. But Willis timed her kick perfectly and just looks super fresh going over that last 200 meters.
Yeah, I think, I said Willis was my sleeper, and I said that there was a very specific scenario where I could see her winning, and this was the scenario. Now, I didn't have the courage to actually predict that and
Yeah.
list that in our predictions. But this was the scenario that I saw. Except I just thought that scenario would be a 159 mid scenario.
Right.
I thought that
Exactly.
would be a 159 high. For her to run 158.13, break the meet record that was set by Michaela Rose in the prelims. With the kick that she did, and like Boss Song of Harvard's basically boxing her in up until 150
Yeah.
meters to go. She just finds at the right time enough of a sliver to get through the inside rail and then sling off the curve to eventually kick for the win. And that, I think, was like that moment, the moment Boss Song let off the rail.
Yeah.
That's the moment that Willis won the national title. It was not when she crossed the line. It was when she snuck by Bossong on the inside rail. And I thought, like, if that didn't happen, Willis does not win the national title.
And that move also seemed to kind of end Bosung's day as well,
Yeah.
because she was putting in a little bit of a charge and then just really faded after Willis passed her. Because there was a second there, I was like, "Oh, here she comes." I think it was maybe around, what was it, 200, when she was
Maybe
started making
under. Yeah.
a strong move, and she ended up fading. But I mean, the other storyline that we got to talk about is Michaela Rose just not being able to get across the line and win that title. It was very surprising. She seemed to have a perfect scenario for her, right? Where it seemed like she was just going to be able to run faster than anyone in the country would be able to hang with. And she could solo it, and there was really nothing anybody could do. And we've seen this story before where she ran well, but she just didn't run her best in the final. Like, if she puts together that kind of prelim type of performance, I mean, maybe Willis still wins, but it's tight, right? It is. There's a chance that Rose wins it. I don't know. There's not a lot of analysis in here. It's just weird that we have not seen her win more often, because she's a supreme talent, and she seems to be able to run the race that have the race run how she wants it to, whenever she wants it to, and yet that hasn't led to more NCAA titles.
Yeah. I'm with you. This is certainly the result where I'm like, I don't know what more she could have done. I thought she like went out aggressive, and we asked her to be aggressive, and she
Yeah,
was. And like, I can't fault her for anything that she did. Um, Yeah, like if she runs under 159, is this a different conversation? Maybe. Like maybe, and if Willis, doesn't get off the curve, and if Paige doesn't find this great kick, then maybe I don't know, maybe it's a different conversation.
yeah,
Um, I don't know what more to say about that. She's I still think one of the most naturally talented women in this field. I think you
sure.
could still argue that maybe she is the most naturally talented person in this field. Um, but it is what it is. Michaela Page, 158.97 for second. Megan Hunter in third for 159.03. I mean, at the end, the kicks mattered, and Page came through. She kicks right along with Willis. And that's kind of it. Like, I think I've kind of exhausted those points.
Yeah, great run from both of these two women. They did exactly kind of what we expected them to, right? They put themselves in the hunt and kicked hard, and it was just, it took a truly heroic effort
It did.
for Willis to beat both of them. So great run by Willis, and honestly, great run by most of these women. Very similar to the men's steeplechase, where you look down the line, there's very few people that I think are going to come out of that race very disappointed. Moving on to the men's 10,000, the first NCAA championship race conducted this past week. And it was a bit of a surprise, as much as a collegiate record holder winning a national title can be a surprise. And that was Ishmael Kipkurui. taking home the win over teammate Habtom Samuel. New Mexico going 1-2, Ernest Chariot finishing third. And I think the biggest surprise about these men finishing 1, 2, 3 was the times that they ran to go 1 through 3. Kipkurui running 29:07. This was not an honest pace, very slow. Ended up relying on some significant kicks, which Kipkurui unleashed just a ferocious one during the last lap. And quite honestly, I just didn't think he had that in him. I didn't know that he had that ability. And this result, I think more than almost any out of like the top contenders from this weekend, reframes how I see him moving forward. Because if he can win in this type of race, now, granted, you look down this field, there's not a lot of great kickers in it. It's a lot of guys that probably would have preferred honest efforts and don't like aren't confident in their kick. That said, he looked far and away better than anyone else when it came to kicking, and he is going to be a dominant force in this event, and I think potentially in the 5K for years to come.
I would have bet my life savings this race goes under 29 minutes. Would have
Oh yeah,
bet,
absolutely.
would have bet the house. I would have bet you, Ben. I would have bet you as my partner on this podcast, on the Stride Report podcast. I would have bet you, and I would have lost everything. I would have lost
Yep.
you. I would have lost the roof over my head. I am stunned that this race was not faster. I mean, just look at the guys in this field. I mean, they're all aggressive front runners, aerobic centric names. They're all guys who like to be, at the front or pushing the pace. They're more comfortable when the race is fast. And with the exception of maybe Rogers Kiplimo getting fourth place for Iowa State
Yep.
and Dennis Kipnigetich of Oklahoma State settling for ninth, the results didn't really deviate that much.
No, which I wanted to ask you, like, do you think the fact that there wasn't that guy that everyone was scared of their kick almost let everyone relax, where they're like, I don't want to be the one pushing the pace because I know I'm not going to like run away from any of these guys. They're like, all these guys can run sub 27:30. Why am I going to be the guy that's just going to be the pacer for everyone? It's not really going to change the result because we're not running away from someone who has a great kick. Like if you had like a 5K 1500 kind of guy who, hey, we're really worried about him, like let's say honestly, even if just like Parker Wolf was in this race, I think this race looks a little bit different. But because of that, there was no one to be afraid of. Do you think that was kind of what ended up making this pace a little bit slower?
You mean no one to be afraid of in terms of like who can set the more aggressive pace?
No, no one to be afraid of in terms of like
Oh, their kick
running out their kick.
running out. Yeah, I maybe I think Kipkuri's kick is just flat out better than anyone thought it was, even after
Oh
the
yeah,
10. Like we saw it at the 10, we're like, okay, awesome. But like for him to do it again, the Kipkuri's kick turns out to just be way, way better than I think
yes,
most people expected. But how I put it in the article, our first thoughts article, was a kicker's raise didn't on paper favor the New Mexico men, but it
no,
also didn't favor anyone else in
anyone
this
else.
field. So it was kind of like like a net neutral, like two
Yep.
negatives make a positive. So um, I don't know if that was the case, but I'm sure it probably played a role of like, well, it's not like we're expecting a crazy big kick out of Ed Ches, who's going to
Yeah.
come across the last 400 meters. So could it play a role? Sure, but I think it's more so like, yeah, this may not benefit us, but we know it definitely doesn't benefit others.
Yeah, and so I think that's probably why no one felt the need to really push the pace, right? It was like who's getting the benefit? It's not me if I'm pushing the pace the entire time. But yeah, 53-3 for Kipkurui in that last 400 is very very strong and certainly more than I think a lot of us expected from him. Besides him though, I mean, did this really change the way you see any of these guys in this field?
Maybe Rogers Kiplimo. He put together a more complete season. He was good from start to finish. He's had some inconsistency. I kind of struggled to like, earlier this season at Brian Clay when he ran fast, I was like, or maybe it was Stanford Invite, I forget. I was kind of questioning whether or not he was actually like legit, and
Yeah.
turns out he is. And it was nice to see that he can run fast, fare well in a tactical race, hold his own multiple times. For that reason, I'm like encouraged, especially if he does come back for cross, which I don't know if he has any cross eligibility. I'm assuming that he does, but I'm now way more confident in him after seeing him put together a more complete season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else on this. It was a very weird race that ended up being the exact results that we would have
Yep.
expected at the beginning,
Yep.
just with time 2 minutes slower.
Yes. Very much slower. Okay. What are we doing going to next?
Let's go to the women's 10,000 where we saw Grace Hartman push the pace for a long time, really separate herself, or really try to separate herself from the rest of the field. Pamela Kosgei gave chase and ended up taking home this title as expected. Her kick at the end was stronger than anyone else in the field, but she really won this race with, I mean, what was it, a mile to go when she passed, I mean, maybe even more than that, 2 miles to go, when she was able to pass Hartman and never really looked back after that. It was an admirable effort by Hartman, and the fact that she was able to hang on to second place with several others, including Joy Noka, who finished third, and Peyton Noe giving chase, who finished fourth. She was able to hold them off and still finish second. I thought was a terrific effort by her after pushing the pace for as long as she did.
I'm hesitant to say this because I think the fan favorite of this race was Grace Hartman. And it makes sense. The NCAA is an American institution, right? There's a clear, again, an American rooting
Yeah,
interest,
yeah,
at
yeah.
least among our readers. It makes sense. Um, but I don't understand why she took that race approach. Like, was it admirable? Yes. Was it courageous? Yes. But why are you trying to outrun and outstrengthen Pamela
Yeah.
Kosgei? I don't
So
I don't get it.
the way that I took it, and this is interesting that we're seeing this the same thing in two very different ways, is this was an approach not to win the race, but to like guarantee like a top two, top three finish. In my mind, this is that's the way that this approach seemed to make the most sense to me, because I agree with you. I don't think it's like, hey, this is the way that you're going to beat Kosgei. Like, but this is a way that, hey, no one else in the field besides Kosgei is probably going to be able to hang with you. So, and you're going to, and even if anybody else does, it's going to be very few people who actually can run the pace that you're setting at. So it's going to make the field a lot more chalk. There's not going to be a lot of surprises, at least at the very front, with this kind of strategy. But I think if she did want to try to like really go for the win, I think this was the worst strategy she could have done.
I, I don't think Hartman's going into this race being like, "Hey, I'm not going for the win." I just don't. I
Maybe
like.
not. If that's
I
the
don't think
case,
anyone of her caliber is being like, I'm not going for the win. I think they can. So I like listen. If that's just what she's comfortable with, great. But it like there's plenty of race tactics that people are uncomfortable with that still don't make sense. And so,
yeah,
did she have a great race? Yeah. And like, was she the hero of this race? Yes. Is she the reason why there was a string of women who, like 10 of them, all got PRs?
yeah,
Yes. Like, she is probably the reason. I just didn't totally get it. And, but like, I'm also a guy behind a mic, and she's now a multi time scorer at the national meet. So I will shut my mouth.
yeah. I agree, though. If you're trying to challenge Kazi, this is not the way to do it. You're talking about a great miler in Grace Hartman. Now, Kazi has proven that she has a better kick than I think we expected her to have coming into this NCAA year. But I would take my odds against her in a kicker's race rather than an honest effort any day of the week if I was Hartman. So very surprising there. Looking through the rest of these results here, I mentioned Nokut and Noe in third and fourth. Scrimger was fifth. And Chet Kemoy of LSU was a surprise sixth place finisher, and Racina Machu was seventh, and Brenda Tuwe of Alabama was eighth. anything else in these results catch your eye, or did you have any big takeaways for any of these other ones?
I did. I thought that the international presence of the women's 10K, Joy Knockout, right? You see her run a big
Yeah.
PR, and a Chip Kamoy big PR, Brenda Two-Way big PR. These long distance stars, and even Rosina Machu, who is American, but another true long distance aerobic centric
Yep.
star. The honest pacing of this race is essentially took out any tactics, any leg speed, any nuanced positioning. It was
Mhm.
all about raw, true fitness. And for
Yep.
the most part, the women who are the most naturally talented, which is in often case international names who come over from maybe Kenya and rely on just true raw fitness instead of maybe understanding NCAA tactics, they thrived in this race and it showed and they ran PRs. And so I think the honest pacing by Hartman um, almost forced the most naturally fit women to rise to the top of the field.
Yeah, I don't. I would maybe disagree with naturally fit, but the ones that were the 10K is their best event. It ended up being a huge benefit to them. Like Ruth White, I think is the perfect example of that. Ninth place. Like
Sure.
there's not a world where she is finishing in the top 10 if this is a slower pace, right? We looked at her 5K PR last weekend, right? It was
The more aerobic centric women.
right, exactly. Yes. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good way of putting the two exceptions to that were I mean Hilda Omamwe didn't even start, but Diana Cheritich of Oregon did not finish. She stepped off the track. But besides that, yeah, the aerobic centric athletes rose to the top in a significant way, and there wasn't a whole lot of surprise, especially in this top five. Of like, hey, if you knew the race was going to be run this way, you would have expected the top five to look very similar to this.
I agree. I agree. But no notes.
All right, let's move on and go to the men's 800, where we saw a surprise winner. I thought there was a favorite in my mind was Tanoda Matsasa. He doesn't even make it, or he doesn't even start in the 800 prelims. And it is Sam Whitmarsh, who Garrett kind of poo pooed a little bit last
A
week.
lot of it.
Yeah, and I look, I said, hey, I agree with you. You have great reasons of being skeptical, but I can tell you, when he's on, he's better than pretty much anybody in the NCAA, and he was on this past weekend running 1:45.86, holding off Matthew Erickson of Oregon, Rivaldo Marshall rounding out the top three. But there was a lot of attrition in these prelims as well. It wasn't just Matsatsa not running. There was Nick Plant getting DQ'd. There was Abdullah Hassan not qualifying. It was Hindal Roban not qualifying for the finals. And a lot of men that we did not expect to qualify, namely like the Samuel Rodmans, the Samuel Navarro's making it. I mean, even Kadali of Oregon, after the season that he had, qualifying came as a little bit of a surprise that make the finals, but it was Whitmarsh in a ferocious final kick in the last 200 meters that wins him his first NCAA title.
Just got distracted by his regular season. Just didn't think his regular season was good.
It wasn't good until it was, right? And I think that's where it's like he finally put together a couple good races there at the end.
Like we've seen him have postseason success before.
Yeah.
Um, but like for whatever reason, his regular season versus postseason was dramatically different. It was a clear difference. But I just put more stock into the regular season, and you and I were concerned during then, and then
Mhm.
postseason came around, and you were maybe a little less concerned, and I was like, yeah, we've seen this though, and I was wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. Like the guy's just a great guy, like you can
Yep.
tell, like just a great guy, and he works hard, and you want to see him win because he's just incredibly talented. Just his stride makes him just one of those guys where you're like, I don't want to have to race you. Oh, please, dear God, don't make me race you. And he won, and I'm happy for him. Like I wanted to see him do well. I didn't think he was. I thought if he made the finals, um, he would maybe like get caught in like a kicker's tactical race. But no, he won, and he was great.
Yeah, I mean, not a super fast race. I mean,
Nope.
145 high. They went out. Christian Jackson pushed the pace, running 51.6, but it wasn't really like anybody really took this race by the horns until Whitmarsh did in the last 200 meters. And to your point about, I feel like everybody loves Whitmarsh. I don't think I've ever seen anybody happier finishing second to somebody than
I saw
Matthew
that.
Erickson after he crossed the
Yeah.
line and was like so happy for Whitmarsh. And I think that's a reflection of his position in the NCAA. But yeah, I thought that this just was one of those national championships. It was almost reminiscent of the Rivaldo Marshall Indoor National Championship, where it was a good performance, but we're so used to seeing like almost world championship level efforts to win an NCAA title in the 800. This wasn't like that kind of effort that we saw needed to win this race this year.
No, no, it wasn't. But like it was just I don't know. I kind of thought like a lot of this was sloppy racing from pretty much everyone else.
Yeah,
Honestly, it just did. Erickson was the guy who like he made his move last and was rewarded with the second place finish. And so he didn't run a sloppy race, but he just didn't necessarily run a race that was going to put him in the position to win.
right.
Um, and like it was just kind of sloppy, just across the board. And I don't really have any more notes on that. Now, shout out to Rodman and Navarro, fourth and sixth
Yeah.
respectively. Like those guys, like I mean, Rodman was tactically brilliant throughout the postseason. Really, really good. He'll go to Virginia next year, and we'll talk about transfers in our next episode.
Hmm.
And then Sam Navarro, Mississippi State. The guy was like not on anyone's radar. Like he had run a good like 146 early in the season, but came from JUCO and has just suddenly run 145 in the prelims, sixth place All American honors. Good for him because of all the guys that I thought Mississippi State was going to put in an All American spot, it was not him. I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be Hassan.
Yeah. It was one of those. If you just turned on the final and you saw a Mississippi State singlet, you're like, oh, okay, well, there's Hassan. He's running. And then you're like taking a closer, like, no, that's not him. That's someone else from Mississippi State. So yeah, fantastic runs from those guys. But yeah, I agree. I think that was my big takeaway of like, just didn't feel like a normal elite 800-meter race that we're frankly spoiled with. I mean, 145 is a great time, but we've just been spoiled with the 143s, the 144s to win NCAA titles, and we did not see anything quite like that this year. But
Real
let's
quick,
wrap up. We got
real
two
quick,
more
real
races.
quick.
Sorry, go
One
ahead.
sec. I want to ask you this question. Did we overrate this 800-meter field?
Yes.
I think so too. Okay. Okay, that's it. I want to just check that.
Okay. Let's wrap up the women's side with the women's 5K, where we saw Pamela Kosgei be the next member to win both the 5K and the 10K in the same national championships. I don't think have we seen that.
Parker
When's the last
Valby?
time we've seen that on the women's side? Oh yeah, sorry, I Parker Valby obviously. Before Valby was it?
Whew.
It had been a while, right?
Would
Because
it?
Tui never did it.
I don't think Tui did it. Did Trelangott of Alabama do it? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't know when that last would have been. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, it's pretty good company to be in. It's like you and Parker Valby in probably the last 10 years, 5 or 10 years to pull off this double. And her surprising runner up was none other than Vera Schoberg, who had just run the 1500-meter, I think finished 10th or 11th
11th.
there, and comes back and finishes second in her worst event in the 5K on tired legs. I think this performance was one of the most like outstanding of the entire weekend. To do this on tired legs and you're not in your like secondary event is incredible. But you look through the rest of this field and it was just kind of like no one really had the legs. Like Kosgei runs 15:33 and looks way better than everyone else because everyone else, quite frankly, didn't look near her level.
No, they were either just simply not nearly or anywhere close to as fit or as talented as Kosgei, or in the case of Grace Hartman, Peyton Noe, Amina Matug, they're all racing on tired legs. Now,
Yep.
Matug, 1500-meter prelims, didn't have to race the 1500-meter
Yeah,
finals,
yeah.
still ran well, but like they all ran like they all just looked tired, and Sojberg somehow didn't, and she
Yeah,
just
I don't
stormed
know.
past. But I think this was like a nice race of like Kosgei was able to show that like she can win an aggressive front running race and she can win a tactical race. Now, granted, when I look at this field, I think she probably still should have won regardless.
Yes. Yeah, that was my takeaway. Is like when we were talking about the 5K, I was like, I mean, yeah, we're talking about Kosgei and Hartman, and then I don't really like anybody else in this field, and that's pretty much how this bore out. Where it was just like, yeah, Sophia Kennedy ran a strong race to finish third. Marian Jepnegenic of New Mexico finishing fourth, but it just wasn't. This
There's
field
no
lacked
umph.
a lot of oomph. Yes, that is the perfect word for it, because all the oomph would either run out in the 1500-meter or the 10K earlier a couple days before.
Shout out to Northern Arizona's Agnes Mateague, seventh place finish, great run. This felt like a race that really played into her favor with her skill set.
Mhm.
So great run for her. And yeah, Marian Chepnegenic ran with Kosgei, and she just hung on. Like that was just a
Yep.
pure strength kind of result. And so Hartman does fade to fifth. At that point, like, okay, sure. Like she was the aggressor in that 10K, legs tired. I get it. I'm not really like, I'm not overreacting to this result.
Hartman, and we'll get to this in a second, a key figure in our fantasy results.
Did you tally them up yet?
I tallied them all up. We will be talking about those in
Oh
just a
no.
minute, but Hartman's fifth place finish had some big consequences
I
that
was
we'll
looking
get
at this and I
into.
was like, I hope he doesn't bring this up because I know I did so bad, but I did not realize that it had that big of implications.
It was
So,
there. There was one that was close. There was one that was not.
and I kind of
We will
figured
get
that
into.
that is. All right, let's go to the men's 5,000 and knock this out. Brian Musau takes over with what, 400 to go? How many, when does he take over? 600 to
Um,
go?
yeah, let me look at the yeah, I think it was about 400 looking at the splits. Yeah, that sounds
Takes
about
over
right.
from Matt Strangio, and stalking him is a pack of Strangio and Soka and Langon and Samuel, and the whole time I'm watching Marco Langon, and I'm like, oh, he's chipping
Yeah.
away, he's chipping away,
Yeah.
he's chipping away. The whole race I'm watching him, and he gets up there, and with 200 meters to go, he comes off there. He's matching Masao. 150 meters, I'm like, oh, could he get him? And then 100 meters was like, I think he's going to get him.
Yeah.
And then at 80 meters to go, the
Yeah.
form broke
Yeah.
and he just faded back. Samuel eventually passed him, but it's Masao, Brian Masao, who wins in a time of 13:20. Again, another guy who I poo pooed, as you like to say. And Samuel getting second with Langan getting third. Valentin Soka of CBU getting fourth. Rocky Hansen of Wake Forest getting fifth. Matt Strangio of Portland, sixth. Ishmael Kipkurui of New Mexico, seventh. And Fawad Masaudi of Oklahoma State, eighth. Um, Musau just didn't race this season. So I was like, I can't say that he's a national title threat if I don't know what his fitness is. He raced
Yep.
one kind of inconsequential 5K race to get a regional qualifier. He got second at a regional meet, which frankly neither you nor I put much stock into.
No.
And then he wins a national title. So shows what I know, but I can only base my analysis off of what I have in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that we have a little bit of a blind spot to, and it's not for any fault of our own, is we don't necessarily know how these things are, how coaches are planning out these seasons, right? And it very much seemed like Dave Smith and Masao took the approach of like, we're just going to slow play this season. It's not because he's not fit, it's just we're going to slow play it. And ultimately, it was the perfect strategy, right? So, yeah, I mean, fantastic performance from him. And Samuel, I thought a really good run from him. 2 second place finishes, really good run. And Langan, like you said, you have to like everything that he did about this race and up until 80 meters left. where it just fell apart. But he, again, looks like he will be a national title contender for the next year or so because of his combination of speed and just overall aerobic fitness.
Is there anything Langon could have done better to win this race?
No.
I don't think so.
He ran it. He ran very well. He
I
did everything
agree.
he could have.
I agree. Why did Rocky Hansen? Why was he so aggressive?
I just think that's his style, and he's kind of the young, like, I'm just gonna go for it. Like I think this kind of result is what he needs to be able to back off a little bit and maybe just wait and calm himself down a little bit before going just headstrong into these kind of situations.
Agreed. And I don't really have a whole lot left on this field, which is weird. I thought I'd have more to say, and I don't.
No. I thought Fawad Musau could do better. 8th place was fine, but yeah, I think the inexperience showed a little bit in the 5K. That experience showed as well. But yeah, let's wrap it there quickly because I know this has been a long one. We got to go over the fantasy results. So on the men's side, it was a bloodbath. It was really rough.
Yeah,
I take home the win 52-23.
Oh no!
Habtom, Samuel, and Kipkurui beating Garrett's entire team alone.
Yeah, I know.
And then I had Corrigan and Green, so that helped significantly as well. On the women's side, it was tight. It was 39-42. I took home the win. It was Grace Hartman. Like I said, if she ends up finishing second in that race, I think it ends up being you end up taking home the win there. Pamela Kosgei really helped me out with 20 points there. Hartman and Doris Lemngole and Margot Appleton were all very strong for you, but I had Holiday Lowry, Michaela Page, and Angelina Napoleon.
Yeah, you countered me so well.
Way.
Yeah, and I'm watching this and I'm like going back. I was, a couple days after the prelims, I'm going back and I'm listening to that podcast episode just to see what our teams were, and I'm like, all right, I'm screwed there, I'm screwed there, I'm screwed there. Yeah, I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in bad trouble. I'm hearing myself make my picks and I go like, dude, what are you doing? Don't make the pick. So yeah, that was a tough one.
No, it was fun to do and another fun thing to track for us. But let's wrap it there. It was a fantastic season, as we mentioned at the top. A great national championship. Really fun to get into that. We have end of season awards up. We can talk a little bit more about that next week, perhaps. But we have a lot of transfers to get into. A lot of other. We got to talk about the NCAA settlement. We're gonna have tons to talk about this summer. Like Garrett said at the beginning, it's probably some of the more interesting conversations because they can be a little bit more free flowing. We don't have to just focus solely on results. So make sure you're tuning in. The off season is not the off season. It's just the non-running season. So we're going to have a lot to get into.
Like Ben said, the off season is not the off season. It's just the non-running season. The off season for content is when our metrics are the best. It's when our content is the best. It's when our numbers go up. It's when our growth goes up. Transfers, the preseason rankings are the staple. It's what we're known for. The best content is still to come, and it's going to happen over the next few months. So if you're new and you haven't, been familiar with our site, buckle up because a lot of stuff is coming on the way. That's it.
Absolutely. All right, Garrett. Well, until next week, I'll talk to you.